For today, you need page 33. Looks like this. We are going to pull together a lot of things we've been talking about with y equals mx plus b and figure out the easiest, most efficient way to get ourselves a graph of the equation. All right, guys, let's look at 1 and 2. Number 1 says, draw a line with a slope of 1/3. That means any line you want. You just have to make sure it has a slope of 1/3. And number 2 says, draw a line with a slope of -2. Again, any line you want, but with a slope of -2. Pause me right now and give those a try. All right, let's see how you did. So I'm going to draw a line with a slope of 1/3, but it may not look like the line that you drew. So I'm going to go right here, and I'm just going to go up 1/3. And then I'm going to follow that this direction, and I'm going to connect my dots. And the question right here says, how do I know that my line has a slope of 1/3? So if you're looking at my pink line and you're like, my line doesn't look like that. The question here is, does your line, wherever you drew it, does it have a rise over run of up 1/3? That's what really matters here, right? Is that your line goes up 1/3. Now, likewise here, a slope of -2, what if I come right here and then I go like this? Here's an example of a line with a slope of -2. Again, your line does not have to look exactly like my line, but what your line needs to have is a rise over run of down 2/1. So what's different maybe about your line and my line? We should each have up 1/3. And some of you might be saying, I drew the exact same line as you. That's great. But if you didn't, the only thing that's different from your line to my line is the y-intercept. My line crosses at 2. Yours might cross anywhere else, really, as long as it goes up 1/3. Number 2, I gave a y-intercept of 4. Yours could be anywhere, but then it has to go down 2/1. So the part that changed maybe from your graph to mine is the y-intercept. And what that means to me is that honestly, those are the only 2 things impacting this line, which means those are the only 2 things I need to get a line. So right over here, it gives us some instructions that we're going to follow to create some graphs for each equation given over here. That's these. Do you recognize this as the form that we have been working with? Do you see y equals mx plus b? I hope you see that and recognize that as the form we've been working with. Number 1 says find the slope. Okay, and when I find the slope, I'm actually going to also write it down. The slope equals, which of these values is the slope? Take a look at that. Let your mind process that. Remember, the general overall form is y equals mx plus b. As we've talked about with this form, the slope is the coefficient of x. I'm going to say that one more time. The slope is the coefficient of x. So here's our equation. The coefficient of x is 2/3. That's step number 1, find the slope. Step number 2 is the other thing that we need that we just talked about. Find the y-intercept. Find the slope, find the y-intercept. Okay, the y-intercept is the constant value being added to the term with x. And I know you're looking at that going, Ms. McGowan, that's subtraction. But remember, subtraction is really just adding a negative, right? So it's truly all addition. All right, so the y-intercept is -1. And in fact, before we move on to any other steps right now, before I show you anything else, will you guys please go through? I need you to pause me, and I need you to go through questions 2 through 7. Actually, just do 8 too, it's a little different. I want you to go through all the rest of these graphs, and I want you to do those first 2 steps right now. I want you to write down M, and I want you to write down B to make sure we can find those in the equation. Pause me and find M and B. Okay, I imagine that there were a couple of these that it might have been a little bit tricky for you to figure out the M and the B. That's okay, I promise I will help you with those. But let's go back to number 3. Now that we've done this, we found the slope. Now that we've done this, we found the y-intercept, or at least on most of them. Again, maybe there's a couple that we're unsure about. But now step number 3 is graph the line by first, this is really important, First plotting the y-intercept and then creating a line with the correct slope. So we start with the y-intercept. Which one's the y-intercept? Oh, the b. We start with the b value. That gives us our location. Like up here on these graphs, we all have the same steepness, but your graph might be shifted up or down from mine depending on where the y-intercept is. Here on question number 1, that means when we graph this, we have to give ourselves a starting location by focusing on the y-intercept first. If this says b equals -1, ready? Be with me here. I'm going to go on the y-axis and I'm going to put a dot on -1. That's my starting point for this graph. I need a location to start from so that my steepness moves from the correct starting point. So the y-intercept is your starting point. From there, how am I going to move? I'm going to go up 2 over 3. This part isn't new. We found a lot of slope. We recognize a lot of slope. We do a lot of those triangles. This is just maybe one of the first times we've actually gone through this process of drawing it from having these values. So I have y-intercept of -1. That's my starting point. Remember, we always move left to right so that you can just focus on up and over or down and over. Remember, over is to the right. I'm going to say that again. Over, when I say over, that's to the right. You guys tell me, which way is over? Yeah, I'm going to pretend I can hear you all. It's to the right, right? Okay, so I'm going to go like this. Up 2, over to the right, up 2, over 1, 2, 3. That's not really enough for me to get a good solid line. I'm going to keep going. Up 2, over 3. In fact, up 2, over 3. In fact, I get as many corners as I possibly can, just like I did when I was finding slope. I get all these lovely corners. And now is when you go left, when you're following the pattern the other way, now you can go down and to the left. Down and to the left, down and to the left. Because we know all of that keeps the pattern. And then the more dots you get, the straighter line you can draw, sort of, maybe. I'm going to get a ruler because that bothers me when they're all wonky. If you have a ruler or something, you can totally use it. But let's try that again, okay? So question number 2, which one of these did we start with? The y-intercept. b equals 1, I'm going to go on the y-axis to +1. That's your starting point. The y-intercept is your starting point. From there, this is up 3 over 1. Don't forget those whole numbers are always over 1. We need a rise and a run. So from here, I'm going to go up 3, 1, 2, 3 over 1. 1, 2, 3 over 1. These boxes are so little. And then I go this way, down 3 left 1, down 3 left 1. And when you're finished drawing it, the things that you understand about slope from the last standard should still be applying here. I know that that's a positive slope, so I know from left to right it should be going upward. If it didn't, I went the wrong way, which is the number one mistake on these, is students going the wrong way. Okay, so pause when you're done and go, okay, positive slope, good. Positive slope, good. This is definitely steeper, positive slope, but it's still going in the correct direction. All right, let's keep going here. Number 3, did you notice that if there is nothing added on here, there's actually a 0. This is a y-intercept of 0. That means I start at the origin. Okay, there's my y-intercept. From there, do I go up or down? Of course I go down because it's a negative slope. But over is still to the right, you guys. Which way is over? Yeah, to the right. So I'm going to go down 3 over 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Down 3 over 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'm going to go opposite, up 3, left 4. Once you get the pattern established, you can see what you're doing. And then I take my ruler and I connect my dots. And I just want to make sure we still remember from the stuff we talked about yesterday, this purple line represents every solution to this equation. But I didn't need to make a table of values to find it. I just used the patterns that I understand about y-intercept and slope to get every corner. I could have absolutely plugged in values and gotten a table. Instead, I'm using my patterns to get all of these values and connect the dots and show all the solutions to the equation. This purple line shows all the solutions. Now they tried to mix me up on number 4. but I'm not mixed up that easily, right? M is 1 because it's the coefficient of x, and b is -2. It's the constant part. So I start with the y-intercept at -2. And from there, I go up 1 over 1. That means it's going to hit every single one of these tiny little corners all the way across here. And this is my line. Right there. Okay. Question number 5. Did you get M and B here? M and M. That's funny that I wrote that. M and B. That's important. That's the B value. That's the y-intercept. So here I go. I'm going to go up to 3 on the y-axis. And from there, it's a negative slope. So I'm going to go down 2, over is still to the right, down 2 over 1, down 2 over 1, all the way down like this. And then I go opposite. And this is a negative slope like it's supposed to be. It's going the correct direction, negative slope. All right, look at number 6. If you don't have an x, this is really like it says 0x plus 5. Of course, a mathematician won't write 0x. If there's 0 x's, you just don't have to write them. But that means if they're not written, you have to know it's 0 x's. The slope is 0 and the y-intercept is 5. That means I go to the y-axis and put a dot there. And slope of 0, my brain just knows, oh yeah, slope of 0 is a flat horizontal line. So I just draw a line. And one of the things I remember is if it says y equals 5, my line goes through the y-axis. Let's write that over here, through the y-axis. And this especially weird one, you're going to do a lot more of these with Miss Johnson next week, so I'm just going to show you really quickly here. This one is going to go through, instead of the y-axis, guess what happens? It goes through the x-axis. And where does it go through the x-axis? Right here at -1. So I'm going to put a dot on the x-axis, and this is actually the one equation on this paper that does not fit y equals mx plus b. It's not in the right form. And actually, you know what that means? That means what's the slope? It's undefined. It's undefined. And what's the y-intercept? There is none because it never crosses the y-axis. That's a weird one, and you're going to work a lot more on those next week with Miss Johnson. So look right here on number 8. This one is already graphed, but it's not graphed correctly. Can you find the mistake and fix it? Look at the direction of this graph. This graph is going up 1 over 2, up 1 over 2. It is not supposed to do that. It's supposed to be going down 1 over 2. This is a very common mistake that students make, is going the wrong direction. Let's regraph this down 1 over 2 here. And this problem also shows you an excellent example of the difference between a positive slope and a negative slope. If the line is supposed to show me all the solutions to the equation, if I go the wrong direction, I am messing up pretty much all of the solutions. I am showing all the wrong solutions except for the y-intercept. This purple line is all the solutions to that, not this one. All right, that is what we're working on a lot. We'll work on it a lot more next week too, but you should be able to pretty efficiently go from a slope-intercept form equation into the graph. Give it a try on some of your practice.